ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're gonna be talking about Black Lightning #2, and this one is the one that gives us a little bit more insight into what the hell is going on with Anissa. One of the things I've really enjoyed about the current crop of DC Comics is something that was a huge staple to me of the Heroes in Crisis story arc. It was something that I felt that, while I'm pretty sure I'm probably one of the only people who actually like that story arc, the thing that I really enjoyed was, I guess, the testimonials, the confessionals, where the characters will be talking about what's going on with their lives, or, you know, certain incidents that they have dealt with that have affected them in some negative way, trying to work through it, trying to focus on getting their mental health on point. And right now, this issue is really mostly about Anissa trying to do that, trying to work out what happened the night of absolute power, and her effectively losing her abilities, being caught in that terrible situation, something that we talked about in the issue for Black Lightning #1, which, if you haven't checked out that video, it's right up here. But during that incident when they were fighting against the Amazos, the Super Amazos, actually, they lost their powers. Seemingly everyone but Jefferson, though it is in some ways implied maybe he did lose his abilities as well, but that's one of those things I'm sure we'll learn more about as the book carries on. But with Anissa, she's having a conversation with an artificial intelligence, which is basically sanctuary technology from Heroes in Crisis, or a more modified version of it. I don't think it's exactly sanctuary tech, but it's definitely something along the same lines as it. And she's just working through all of it, talking about her grief, talking about getting these new powers, and really trying to work out her relationship with her dad. She feels that Jefferson, as Black Lightning and as her father, is an overbearing person who won't let her stand on her own and is constantly criticizing her choices. It's in some ways right, but also wrong. And it's because perception is 9/10 of reality. It's what she thinks is happening. And it's not to say that Jefferson isn't doing these things, but she's far removed from him. I feel like Jefferson has grown a lot in the time that he has not been around Anissa. She's the older of the two children between herself and Jennifer. She's moved off, gone to college, become an outsider, and done all kinds of other stuff. But in that time frame, Jefferson has softened, become a completely different person than what I think Anissa is used to. I don't expect many people to remember this story arc in the Outsiders comic, where Jefferson learned the truth about Anissa's sexuality. The fact that she was lesbian, she was with Grace Choi, and while he technically went along with it, he didn't exactly respond to it in the best possible way. It was one of those situations where he was trying to be an accepting father, but he kept saying the wrong things. And this was something that was actually rehashed in the other history of DC Comics. It's actually hashed out in even greater detail and from Anissa's perspective. The fact that she even says that while he accepted her, he used certain language that basically almost kind of seemed like backhanded acceptance. And that was a while ago, something that happened about roughly around 20 years ago. However, in universe, DC Comics works on a sliding time scale. It really ain't been that long, so it's actually fair for Anissa to have her guard up with Jefferson, but at the end of the day, it's still a disheartening thing to see. Largely because Jefferson's far more understanding to what Anissa is going through than she even realizes. And Anissa is so angry over past grievances, she doesn't even notice that things have changed. She's fighting her dad on autopilot. And what I think makes it even sadder is that she doesn't even realize it. She's really jumping the gun here on Jefferson Pierce, her own father, and he's actually trying. You can actually tell in some of these moments that, you know, when he's trying to talk to her, he's actually trying to work with her, that when she thinks that he's gonna, you know, emotionally barrage her, beat her down, he's not doing it. He's actually trying to listen to her. She's just so caught up, she doesn't see it. It gets bad enough that even Jennifer, who has also been dealing with the exact same thing with Jefferson, even she has to call out Anissa and say, hey, you're way out of line. You think that he's treating you this way, but he's really not. This sort of stuff is heartbreaking to see between the Pierce family. In the TV show, it was always depicted as though they were like this, almost kind of like a Cosby family by way of DC Comics, but they all had their own issues that would test their familial bonds. And while technically it was kind of that way in the comics, I felt like in the comics they were a lot tighter of a unit. So it's definitely sad to see, though it is very reminiscent of that CW vibe that we got from the Black Lightning series over there. But here, yeah, it's still disheartening to see, but I enjoy the drama of it because it's telling a story and it's doing it pretty damn well. And one that's actually relatable to me because I've been in both Anissa's shoes and also Jefferson's shoes in a lot of different respects. I have my own daughter and son, and I think if you were to ask them what it is like to grow up as the child of the Blerd Without Fear, like not the content creator, but as the person that you never get to meet. Not to say that, I act differently, but just, you're not my kids, okay? Let's just put it like that. They would probably tell you two very different stories about who I am to them and what kind of father I am or was to them in whatever way they would want to put it. I'm pretty sure if you asked my son, he'd probably tell you that I was incredibly strict and didn't really, I won't say wasn't friendly, but definitely wasn't going out of my way to be their friend. And if you ask my daughter, she'd probably tell you, yeah, he's still kind of strict, but he's definitely like way more friendly. And it's just because these are children that were encountered by me at very different points in my life. So I could easily see how Jefferson probably was one way with Anissa and a completely different way, or maybe somewhat different way with Jennifer. And that's why they have two completely different experiences when it comes to how they interact with Black Lightning. And while you can't change the past, you do have direct control over your present and your future. And I'm hopeful that things change for the Pierce family on the whole. I think they will, especially considering the fact that Lynn, the matriarch of the family, is very much still active in both children's lives. It's still a family that works together in ways that I think is uncommon to see depicted for a Black family, affluent or otherwise, in any medium. Usually Black families are depicted as dysfunctional at best, depending on who's writing the story, but I feel like when we have people writing the story who have skin in the game, we usually get better depictions because we're not getting that Hollywoodized version of it. So I was actually really happy to see this. And I think Brandon is one of the, I would actually dare say probably one of the better writers. Like I would probably put him in my top 10 best writers right now in comics. I mean, the guy's just that good. I would say if you don't believe what I'm talking about, go read Hardware Season 1 and that'll learn you. For lack of a better way to put it. That said, we do get a couple of other things that are going to happen here. One of them I kind of want to save to talk about. There's a character who makes a return from the 90s. I want to say it was probably like the 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s era of Superman comics. But I'm not going to talk about that here in this issue just because I feel like it would kind of drag this video out probably more than what it should be. Not to mention, I kind of seen a little bit ahead. I actually want to wait and talk about this cat in the next video, especially considering he doesn't really have a huge heap of a lot to do in this one. But there is a character by the name of Jay Harriman who pretty much immediately comes out of the gate with like Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, Candace Owens style energy. Let's just put it like that. A guy who is putting the cape on for Superman, but seemingly not for Black and brown heroes who are doing the same job that Superman is. So there's that. But I want to save my thoughts on that one because, as I stated earlier, I got to take a peek at the next issue of Black Lightning, and I have a whole lot to say about that, but we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna save that for another day. I will say though, what I like about this issue is that Natasha Irons, aka Steel, the second ever, or technically third ever Steel, but once again, that kind of muddy the wall. Actually, I wouldn't even say third. It's actually more like fifth, I think fourth or fifth Steel. But once again, that gets down into semantics and a bunch of other BS. But Steel, in this particular instance, is back, and I actually like that. her and Lynn have been working together at Steelworks, which they got the whole setup in the south side of Metropolis. I like seeing Steel back in action, especially with her new armor. Looks fantastic. We don't get to see it in action this issue, but I promise you will get to see a fair chunk of it in action in the next issue. But yes, that's something to definitely look forward to. But I really do appreciate Steel being around. I really like to see that because I feel like Natasha Irons doesn't get to do a whole heap of a lot. I mean, yeah, Steel doesn't either really a lot of the times, but I feel like they usually end up getting relegated to the background of being wherever the super family is in whatever random issue of Action Comics or Superman comics. And sometimes they do get main stories. I mean, Steel did get one written by the legendary Worf actor Michael Dorn, but I mean, once again, that was one of those that, it was just a mini series. It's not an ongoing. It was still great to get it, but Natasha Irons ain't getting that kind of love. But wherever she does manage to get storytelling, like I really liked her in the Action Comic side of things when we're doing the War World arc. That was pretty cool to see her kind of get a little bit more to do. But I also just appreciate seeing her here. I like seeing how she interacts with the other Black Lightning characters. It was really cool to see. So but yeah, hopefully one day, I don't know if it'll be Brandon Thomas that does it, but maybe we'll get a Natasha Irons Steel series at some point. But I'm not holding my breath, but I'm just saying. But yeah, I love this issue. I think it does a really good job to highlight how being a father is probably, especially a father to two strong Black daughters at that, is not an easy job. Not to say that it's because it's not a good or fun thing to be, but because you have to look at life the way they see it. The way that the world looks at them is not exactly the same way it looks at you. It was very illuminating, and even kind of made me reflect on my own experiences as a father. So I think it did its job.